Committee meeting of January 7th, 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and seeing as there is no one in the gallery, we'll skip over public comment and go right to general business. Tonight we have with us the principals and assistant principals of Millbury Street Elementary School and North Street Elementary School. So I will turn the floor over to you guys. Welcome, and thank you for coming out.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Amy, for having us. Always a pleasure to come every year and share some of the work that we're doing 2 to 6 at Millbury Street and North Street. I don't know if anyone else wants to welcome. Just say hello real quick.
Thanks for having us. Steve says it's tradition that Steve does most of the talking. It makes it go faster. I do plenty enough interruptions and interjections, so he's going to be the presenter.
All right. As Joanne and I were thinking about what we wanted to share today, so much of what we were doing last year was building towards what we're doing this year. And so we actually had reached out to Jay and we said we feel like there's a lot of some of the same themes and topics. And Jay said, that's perfect because that's a good thing. And Joanne and I were talking, and Roseanne, Paul, really about connections, which continue to be really important, but also the consistency with what we do year to year. In that it really does equal the well-being of our students and of our staff, our communities. I always like to go back and have a through line back to the district strategic plan, and when you do that, 2 of those goals are right there. Well-being and connections are very important, so they continue to be at all levels. Personally, I've got a chance over the past month and a half or so to be at the high school, as I'm sure you know, and I saw some of the high school students up there, and I could kind of see that really across the district for the first time, which was a great opportunity and pretty amazing to see. I came back and shared that with our staff a little bit yesterday at our staff meeting, because our really at the cusp of it is that our families and communities, our educators in the school, and our students together really create that culture of connections for our students. And I want to just take a moment because I always put educators up there, and we spend so much time talking about teachers, but when we talk about educators, we're talking also about our paraprofessionals in our buildings, our secretaries, our custodians, our lunch staff, our bus drivers, everybody that the kids interact with on a daily basis are really part of that important building of culture across the school day. So really want to highlight the work that they do. They're essential components to our teams. So we want to take a deep dive into some of the programming and systemic connections that we have going on. Very quickly, kind of a look back at last year. We had a lot going on last year, building up to the year we're in now. So this slide actually comes from more of last year, what we were doing. So in terms of our ELA program and math programming, we were piloting different programs, which I'm sure you remember, Wit and Wisdom, MyView, EL. Also, our 6th grade math teachers were meeting with the middle school as they were piloting a program at the middle school to begin adopting. So this year we've adopted a new math program in 6th grade as well. We also were getting ready, and this was a multi-year goal of ours, to really re-envision our STEAM at the younger grade levels, and really thinking about how we're rebranding it, but also the curriculum. So we spent time last year really redesigning the spaces which we showed. We were exploring with Jen Mannion and other schools in the district Project Lead the Way grant funding. We were looking at how we can redesign the space itself to make it conducive to more of a STEAM lab. And then lastly, kind of then how we're reporting that to parents in the form of the report card. So we had spent, last year was the first year we implemented a new standards-based aligned report card. We also aligned our SEL focus areas, and we've continued to do that work in year 2 in trying to clarify student learning performances and progress as we go throughout the year. So fast forward now to this year, EL is selected, as you know, and we've been implementing that. We're just about halfway through the school year right now, and with any implementation, there are really things that are positive that are happening. There are things we're learning about the implementation that we want to make adjustments to. And we continue to try to find time for teams to plan together and implement that work. But as you'll see in a great one snippet of video from our students, it's really all about that science of reading, which I'll get to in a moment, that shift in practice and philosophy. Similarly, our 6th grade math, they're using that illustrative math, that accelerated math program for our students. And it's pushing their thinking. It definitely is. It's challenging them in ways that they maybe have not been challenged. But I think over time we'll learn more and get more data on that progression as they go into 7th and 8th grade too, because we want that 6th grade connection to be with the 7th and 8th grade in the middle school math programs. We're in year 1 of Project Lead the Way, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as well. That's happening in our innovation zone time, our former computer time, if you will. And to do that, we've really had to redesign our schedules for related arts to make that cohesive. And then we're in year 2 of implementation of our report card. One of the nice changes we made this year with Bright Arrow, which was the communication platform, is that we can now email those report cards right to families. We really worried in the past that families had to go to the portal. Did you remember your password? And if you're like me with my own kids, no, I did not remember the password. And days go by, weeks go by sometimes, and you're like, I gotta find that password. But now they go right directly to families, and I think that's a big change, a big shift that's positive. We also updated our progress report to align it to the report card for the first time this year and used that back in the fall. We're going to show a little piece of that as well. So I mentioned the science of reading. We've probably heard this many times ad nauseum at this point, but really the shift in our ELA curriculum is to better align ourselves with the science of reading. It's really combining the phonics skills that we do a really great job in our foundations at the younger grade levels up to 3rd grade, really building that phonemic awareness for students, but then combining that with the language comprehension part, putting it together to become a skilled reader. And this video here we think captures, I'm going to pause it real quick. This video we're about to show really captures this.
Yeah.
And Joanne, if you want to talk about the
Sure,
student for a
just a
moment.
little, just a preface before you watch the video. This is one of our 3rd grade friends, Claudia, at Millbury Street School. This was a performance task at the end of the module in 3rd grade on, really the theme was learning is challenging, and it should be, right? We should struggle a little when we're learning. And it really does touch upon the language comprehension part of the reading row, particularly literacy knowledge. So the children were identifying their own reading challenges and matching them up to strategies to help them overcome them. And so they had a wonderful classroom celebration with some VIPs there. And Jen Mannion caught this darling, very articulate young lady explaining her reading contract she created for herself and why. But I really wanted you to touch upon some of the language she's using that came out of working through the EL curriculum for this Module 1. It is pretty deep for a 3rd grader to be expressing herself this way.
The introduction and its purpose. The introduction's purpose is to explain what's going to happen in the rest of the story. This is the focus statement. It's telling you what the challenge is in this, and then in this story. And here are the details. It's a piece of the story that gives, I like to think of it as giving it more life.
Oh, I like that.
To it.
Yep.
And this is the conclusion, which is also, it can be called a solution to the story if there's a challenge. But in this case, it's just telling me my challenges and my strategies. So here it's just telling me what I will be able to do after I do all of this.
Amazing.
So to practice it.
Okay. And which paragraph do you feel most proud of?
I feel most proud of my details.
Because
Because, well, I don't really feel like, I didn't really feel like doing it before, but now that I'm done with it, I feel like I could have felt better about this before.
now you know you can do it, right? So now you have more confidence. That's awesome. Fantastic.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
So there's a lot of discourse between the students and the teachers in EL. That didn't happen overnight. A lot of framing of thoughts, trying to build the scheme of the kids up so that they can apply it to other aspects of their learning. But The other children were answering questions and talking to us in that same, vein as Claudia was, but is that just I think she's so impressive for an 8-year-old, yeah.
And so much of the curriculum and the science of reading in general, it's a lot of that conversations with each other, with the teacher leading it. And if you look at the top on the left there, you see a lot of the things that she's touching on there. She's certainly using vocabulary that is applicable to what the modules have been so far this year. Her verbal reasoning,
And just the literacy knowledge,
Yes,
that she's developing
absolutely.
as
Yeah.
a young reader is just.
And that's,
fabulous.
putting it together. Obviously, she's not talking about her phonological awareness, but she has those skills. It's very, if we looking at her writing, that it's very clear that I bet she's a very strong reader. So it really is all of them combined. It was just a good example of why the shift was important. And as we go through, continue to go through year one, it's really now about continuing to support the educators and giving them time. I can't stress that enough to really sit with the materials, break it apart, understand the why of what we're trying to do, and to fine tune it. It takes multiple years to really implement the program
Yeah,
well. So
it's very dense.
this will continue to be a goal of ours next year and certainly the year after as we shift it to EL. Okay. Project Lead the Way is something I'm really excited about and have come and talked about it before. This is our first year of this as well, and it's being done in our innovation zone time, our computer zone. It's really finding an opportunity to really build our STEAM program all the way down into kindergarten. I know North and South Grafton are doing it as well. But what we had to do at our school, because the programming is so robust, is really be creative in our related arts scheduling. And so more often than not, most elementary schools you have art on Monday, gym on Tuesday, music on Wednesday. But it's really important with Project Lead the Way when kids are in the modules that they have day after day with the engineering process, because they're constantly going through that process to refine what it is they're doing and working on. So we have cycles of Innovation Zone students right now, and the other students rotate through as they normally do the other related arts classes. And that's come with its successes and challenges as we learn and go through this year. Mrs. Lewis put together a few slides for me to share today, just to give you a sense of what the students are working on. Our second and third graders, they've been engaged in a module called Grids and Games. It really starts out first with them using some kinesthetic movement of coding and understanding sequential, logical process, and then it quickly moves into more complex coding on, for them anyways, not for a coder, but a more complex coding on the computer. And today I was in there watching the kids, and they were actually creating games in Scratch Junior, not just a straight line of code, but it actually had multiple codes, and then depending on what the user did, it branched off and had the images on the screen do something else. So it's actually a much deeper level of coding than we've been able to get kids to do before. So Grids and Games was second and third. Oops, this computer here. Fourth and fifth graders are looking at input-output, which is fantastic because it ties directly to our math skills and knowledge as well. They do a lot of pair programming, which involves students working very closely together, and one of them is observing, one of them is the driver, and they're giving feedback to each other. And it was, again, I'll go back to my experience at the high school. I spent some time with the robotics team up in the library a few times, and I noticed the same type of thing, the paired programming. One's driving the robot, and the other one's watching it function and how it's working, and then they collaborate, they find a problem and solution. And on a much more scaled down version, that's what our students are doing with the input-output programming as well. And then sixth grade is doing infection detection. And in this module, students are presented with a real-world problem. This happens to be something they can relate to. But a large number of students are sick. They're learning about transmission of disease through a simulation, and then they're having to find ways to combat that and work together in a very STEAM lab-oriented sense. But a lot of collaboration and deeper learning. And having 15 days, 15, 20 days to do that one after the other really gives them the time to move through it more thoughtfully rather than one 45 minutes and then a week later coming back to it. So
Yeah.
we think that was important in our scheduling. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
You did a great job. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just speaking to the progress report, so last year, we spent a lot of time on adjusting the report card, and we changed the habits of mind to the social and emotional learning core competencies that Castle, puts out and aligns to. So this year, we adjusted the progress report to align with the report card using the same competencies. So there's a consistency here now. For us and for the families as they get to know the competencies as well.
And I think we shared before, these come directly from Castle. The wheel over there, Castle is really the primary source of all things SEL. And so those 5 areas on the left there really tie right to the key competencies that we want to see in our students.
And I know that we already talked about EL for ELA, but within EL, there is a great deal of integration of social emotional learning as well, which is wonderful.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is this evaluated 1 to 5? How are we doing this now?
This is kindergarten through 5th grade.
I'm sorry, the actual score that goes in the box when we do the progress report.
The
Like a 1, 2,
T1,
3.
T2, T3.
Is it 1 to 3?
I can't remember. I don't
Grading.
anymore. Grading.
The grading, what's it?
The grade scale.
Like the grade scale.
So is it
Oh,
like
oh,
needs
oh,
Sorry.
expectation?
No, I was unclear. I'm sorry.
It's yeah.
None
It's
of us could figure out
a
how to
1,
word
2, or
it.
3.
Okay, I didn't want to use the word grading because I don't know. It's a progress report. But that is what it is. So yes. Okay, 1 to 3. Okay.
Yep.
That was right.
And as we think about connection between all stakeholders, our slides are not big enough to hold all of the different things that we do. But we continue to try to find ways to incorporate everyone in this Venn diagram in different ways so that the schools are felt as a community place where it's everyone's school, and everyone belongs in those schools. So just a sampling of some of the different things that we do in terms of student connections. And this was mostly part of what I was talking to Jay. I was like, we feel like we do all these things and we share them, and but it's great. It's who we are. But we have pretty robust student councils. Our band and chorus programs, I think, compete with any other elementary school programs in the state that I've seen. Our numbers of kids that are participating. Just for example, I don't know about you guys, but our 4th grade had almost 90 students volunteer or sign up rather for chorus, to the point where we had to create 2 choruses. Yeah, there's just too many kids to have them all at once. After school, there's various clubs. I know at our school we have a running club that's run by Jess Remy and Gail Van Fleet, and they do a wonderful job with that. The kids get excited about it. Blues and jazz band, newspaper club. I mean, the list could literally go on and on. But we really want the kids feeling like they have a voice in what they get to do at school, and in celebrating, the pride of our schools in different ways.
Yeah,
Anything else?
no, I agree completely.
And several of these clubs actually integrate with the community, so the running club does the 5K, here in Grafton, and band and chorus show up at the Railers games and
Yep.
things like that. The blues band with Apple Tree Arts.
Yeah. Our family connections obviously go right to our PTG, PTO, our events, activities. They do so much for us, as all of you know, but it just, each year we have to highlight it, because I, again, would say that the involvement that we have from our PTO and PTG that they give us in terms of support just is second to none, in my opinion. Whether it's community events like Oktoberfest that they do in South Grafton, or our pancake breakfast, literally one of my favorite days of the year, making pancakes. All the enrichments that get put on at the school. There's a lot of things that I think individuals who aren't in the school every day, or maybe aren't volunteering, don't get to see on a daily basis. And there's so many of those parents I wish we could just list off, because they're so critical. Our fun run, which is the picture down below there, we both do the fun run. raises so much money that goes directly back to the kids. It's just it's something that I feel like is one of the reasons that I'm so proud of the work that
Yeah.
we do every year. Anything else?
No, I was just going to add, I was meeting with my grade level leaders after school today, and I've had the pleasure of bringing a couple new students into the building to a tour to welcome into Millbury Street, as well as a couple of paraprofessional prospects. And I'm really trying to take the time and look at it through fresh lens, because we go to the same place every day for work, and we don't really look at it with a fresh perspective. And this para prospect came in and went into the lobby of Millbury Street School, and if you're familiar with the lobby, you see right into Jen Merkel's library, and she was just like, this is where I want my kids to go. They didn't live in Grafton. I'm like, oh. But then I really started to look around and think of like all the nuances that we've built into that building over the years. The sixth grade quotation walls that are very personalized, the tiles that every sixth grader at Millbury Street puts up on the wall when they leave. We've run out of hallway space that we've had to go into the cafeteria. And I have parents now that come and look for their tile on, get to know your school night. But I said to them, let's take a minute and just really appreciate what we've accomplished here and look at it with fresh eyes, because it looks too familiar if you don't take the opportunity to do that. So I can resonate to Steve's pride of place of his school, because we have it at Millbury Street too.
I was really excited today. We had 2 substitute teachers come in today, and I saw their names on the list, and they were both former North Street students that I remember having.
College break is
college
great.
break,
They all come in, and we have subs.
But the simple fact, they were like, as soon as I could come back and sub, I wanted to come sub back at the school. I was like, that's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And not to go back to my time at the high school, but I did ask a lot of the students, like, what do you remember of North Street? Like, now that you're a senior in high school, what do you remember? And it's this stuff that they remember. It's not the daily, routines or anything of that. They were talking about the times, you were spent the day on the roof, because it's all of those kind of positive memories that they have that really connects them back to the school. So it just shows that it's critically important.
And we can tie that right back to my presentation in November on the HOPE program, and the fact that increasing positive childhood experiences can absolutely diminish the effects of trauma and positively impact mental health levels at us as adults.
And then we keep trying to find ways rather to branch out into the community. Joanne mentioned that the running club does the Harvest 5K at the Community Harvest, and they do the Gazebo 5K. The Worcester Railers, we have a great connection with them across the district. The hockey team is playing next Saturday on the 18th against Neshoba before the Railers game, but our band and chorus is going to be there as well performing. So it's a whole Grafton Public Schools day at the DCU Center, so check that out. The Girl Scouts, obviously, Boy Scouts, the Grafton Library. And just even recently, I was talking to Delaney about having some of the high school kids, they wanted to start a program where the kids will come down and read to our younger students. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yes.
I think the kids will really love that. So we're going to get some dates and get that, started soon. Yep. All right. And then, of course, staff connections, finding ways to recognize all of our staff, as I mentioned, really making sure we have cohesive professional development. Teachers share that is one of the most critical things that they need in their profession. So it's important to find that PLC time, that professional learning community time for them. And just in general, finding ways to incorporate planned group activities, whether that's around the holidays or attending, various things nearby. And I know our staff does multiple things throughout the year. So, and finally, we just wanted to wrap up. We always kind of like to go back to this theme in our slide, in our presentation, because we think it's one of the most important things. But when you ask kids what makes them feel connected, what do the adults do that make them feel connected, almost every time we've done this survey, maybe not in this specific order, but those are the things that the kids say make them feel connected, that the adults listen to them, that they provide solutions when there are challenges, that they're caring, they're kind, they're friendly, understanding of what's going on in their lives, and they follow up to ensure problems are solved. And I think that our staffs do a great job of, making sure we take that feedback from our kids and put it into practice. So with that, questions? That's the end of our show.
I don't have
unless
any
you want to
questions,
add
but Jay,
Thank you so much.
doesn't he do a nice job? Can you see? what
You all
the
helped.
Flow is there.
It all helped.
all
It's a
helped
group
there.
effort,
That's
group
good.
project.
That was good.
But I will say that Mr. Wiltshire, you did pull more than your weight, so you know how those go. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to the committee for questions. So go ahead whenever you.
I have a question. Well, a question. With the readjusting the schedule for Project Lead the Way, how have the kids responded to that? How's that? How do you feel that part's going? Because I feel like when it was first explained to me what you guys had to do, I was like, wow, that sounds challenging. So how's that going?
I would say the kids recognize the purpose of why we did it, which is the most important thing, that they realize that this is more meaningful if I can and they want to work on it every day. And I think it's, for them, it's a little self-sacrifice, but they're fine with it. It ends in April. By the time we get to April, they'll have gone through all the modules we're doing this year and everyone's back to the regular schedule. But a lot of the kids are sad when their 6 weeks ends, and a lot of kids are happy it's their turn, but then they're also happy to go back to their regular rotation. We have to give, I don't know, in our building, how you, Steve, you might have managed that, but Paul worked on that with scheduling, and then it was actually Laura Legault. We actually had a different specialist with a different lens who had a schedule that she needed to meet with band lessons, actually create the final draft of that schedule. Yeah, it wasn't all hands on deck, but having somebody who had to work through it, actually live through it, it was really helpful for her to do it. So we have to give her a lot of credit because she really gave a new perspective to the schedule and how to make it work.
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger challenges we've faced with it is there are certain units that other related arts teachers do, like clay, for
Yes.
example, in the art room, where it really does involve a lot of materials, but then you've got the oven going at the same time. So trying to find creative ways to make sure the class that's not in the cycle when that is happening, because
Gets
they have that opportunity to make it up. But I would agree. I think our related arts teachers have been very creative of suggesting solutions, and
Yeah.
we're open to whatever works for everybody.
Right.
So
the schedule didn't just affect our computer or our innovation zone teachers, it affected all the other art specialists too,
Right.
because if they're missing a whole, grade level or classroom for 6 weeks, but they're continuing through their curriculum, with the other classrooms, it's pretty challenging to have to circle back when you're, particularly art, pulling out pounds of clay, and firing up a kiln and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But they've been really great helping with the adaptation of it.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? Does that include the phys ed rotation, or is that a separate piece?
It would.
That it
Yeah.
does,
It
okay, so
would,
it is
yeah.
impacted slightly, okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that ends up happening is throughout the year, kids will, because there are 5 related arts, and then the innovation zone's technically out, you have your art, your music, your library, and your phys ed. And then on that 5th day, you'll have one of those again, but then the next rotation, you'll have a different one of those again. So
Okay.
throughout the year, there'll be times where kids will have 2 arts one
2
week,
PEs.
2 music one week, 2 PEs one week. So I think the change is it's been, working, I would say, overall, and the kids have been responding well to it.
And we don't know till we try it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, schools are labs, so we have to
Yep.
try.
Well, kudos for trying, because that's a big change
Well,
to
it
change
worked,
the whole
actually.
building
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
like that in one fell swoop, and not trying to do it piecemeal. I'm glad it worked out, and I'm glad Laura was able to help, and I'm glad, that's great. It sounds like it's well worth it, so.
I just have a quick question, which, Roseanne, you might be able to answer best. In the middle school and high school, we have programs such as Lighthouse and SSP. Do you think a program like that would be beneficial at all in the buildings at your age groups, where kids would be pulled out if they're having high anxiety, depression, whatnot?
We've had some conversation around that, and it really is a district decision. But, we do, we feel that because of the number of students, we're able to deal with what is happening with the individual students at this age. And if anything would be to come to pass, we'd probably share a program, should that ever come to be. But it really is, I see it more as not being pulled out, but more of a safe space when the child needs it. And then the children that are in Lighthouse and the SSP programs are integrated into the regular classrooms as much as possible. It really is that added support of the teacher and the counselors in that program that help support, as well as the paraprofessionals.
And when you asked that question, Christy, and I listened to Roseanne's answer, because that is definitely a district-wide kind of decision implementation.
Yes.
It just makes me so thankful again that we have school adjustment counselors now in our building and how crucial they are. You don't really know till they're there, and so
They're
fortunate.
busy.
And so talented at what they do.
Is the need then too high for the amount of adjustment counselors that we have? Given that they're so busy, do we need more adjustment counselors for the amount of students who are in need?
Well, that's a tough question to ask, because we need a little bit more of a lot, but we're working on it as best we can. But we collaborate, so many times a day. With
Yeah.
the school psychologist and the adjustment counselor.
And I think teachers in themselves are adjustment counselors sometimes.
so we work in
We
such
all
teams.
wear different hats.
We really do work. It is a village, and we do work together and collaborate a great deal. And we have certain systems in place where we have a student support team meeting, for example, once a week, where we bring in a teacher can ask to come and speak about a particular case with a student. And we're able to discuss that and come up with some solutions, possible interventions. So when I say that we work as a team, we really do. And then on Monday mornings, we also meet. And I'm not sure. I know that you are also meeting, but we meet for a collaborative tracking meeting where we make sure that we're all on the same page with regard to students that are struggling. So in a number of ways, academically, socially, behaviorally. So. We have established a structure where it would be extremely difficult, near impossible, for a student to fall through the cracks, because we have that communication system and infrastructure that's embedded, that's regularly addressed. And I know you do the same thing.
Yeah, similarly, we've started to use a more centralized data system to give staff a way to input concerns or incidents that come up for students of any size, be it small or large, that come directly to us, and we're notified when those come through. And then we can process them to the right person to respond to it, whether it's our adjustment counselor or Joanne or I or our BCBA or our school psychologist, so that we can kind of parse those out to get the right person to help out the kid.
That's a good question. I think it's a deeper conversation with everybody involved.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. That was a great presentation. I'm sure there's no answer to this yet, but I assume you're sort of capturing data around particularly EL and how we're seeing in practice. Obviously, anecdotally, that video shows us that it's having an impact on the kids. But are you starting to see in the data that the kids are making more progress, or that, the interventionists, for some of the kids who need interventions, are seeing that the kids are really benefiting from the program?
One thing that we noticed, we didn't put the data in here because I know that Jen Mannion had already come to present the MCAS data from last year. Historically, if you pilot new programs, you see a decline in your achievement test, because teachers are using materials they're not as familiar with. Kids are not in that routine. And yet at both of our schools, we saw actually the opposite. We saw quite an increase in a lot of different areas, different grade levels, both student growth percentile. I think our sixth grade at both schools were above 65 or 70%, which is off the charts, exceptional. And then the state average actually dipped slightly, not a whole lot, but dipped slightly. When I asked the teachers about why they thought that was, one of their responses was, well, it was a great group of kids. And I'm like, well, they're the same great group of kids that we have every single year. Yes, but what else? And a lot of them pinpointed that it wasn't necessarily the program, but it was that science of reading philosophy. They're just engaging more, they're talking more, they're using more vocabulary, that consistency around it. They're writing about their reading more, and just having a much deeper conversation about what they're reading. And then that, I think, translates to the improvements in the writing scores on the MCAS that we saw. So I do think that video captures like what we're seeing, and obviously more time will tell. Yeah. We are going to be giving the STAR assessment again in a few weeks, so we're curious about how that is. We're at a point now, when we give the STAR, our teachers are immediately going on and looking at it to see like how each kid's doing, especially ones they've been really trying to work on, whether it's intervention or it's giving them more of a challenging material. They want to see that growth. So I really feel like we're at a good place in looking at that data and adjusting if we're not seeing what we see.
Right.
But initially, yes, I think we're seeing some positive outcomes.
I do too. I do definitely think. I think that video captured it pretty well. I actually brought artifacts in my bag of some writing samples, but I know we can't share them right now. We're out of time. But I do want to say, putting that new curriculum, Yale is very dense. If I were to hand you what the teacher edition looked like, it's crazy dense. And what they're really doing is, instead of just, we used to teach kids a concept and understand, and then they'd spit back their understanding to us, right? And then we'd spiral it back. This is really about building conceptual understanding and schema in kids' brains so that eventually it clicks, right? And they apply it to other aspects of their learning and their schooling. So it took a while for that teacher to get that child to that place, and it isn't just poof, I say this to the kid and then they're going to be able to regurgitate it out. There's a lot of framing of the learning, a lot of repetitiveness. So that was a good question, because I just had that conversation with my grade level leaders today. So they're learning this curriculum, the teachers, and that's kind of the first phase. But I think we're ready to move into the second phase. We talked about this, about now as teachers we need to reflect back on how did this first module that we did in EL affect our students' learning, but also our pedagogy, right? Like, did we do instruction differently? And is that instruction impacting the kids? So we are ready to move into that next phase, Laura, about, all right, let's go back and reflect on when we were teaching. What did the kids really grab? Where were they enthusiastic? Because it's too dense of a curriculum to do it page by page. You cannot. So you really have to parse it down a little bit, but we have to do it with impactful thought. Like, what gave us the best bang for our buck in the classroom during instructional time? And that's where they're ready to move to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great to hear.
I just had one final, for me anyway, question about what do you see? This has been a heck of a couple of years with a lot of change in curriculum, the SEL focus. What do you are you even able to take a breath and kind of look ahead to what some of the challenges are coming down the pike? What's next?
That's a good question.
Well, curricular-wise, is that what you mean, like in our
No, just in general.
Well, Steve's school has actually caught up to my school in population, where I used to have like 100 or more. My school, I still have some space, but I've seen more transitioning of kids coming in the last 2 years than I've ever seen in my 14 years here in Grafton, and a more diverse population with diverse needs. We have a lot of our kids that register are actually English language learners, and so that's impacting those teachers. My English language learner is splitting her time between South Grafton and ours, but I had a child that came in that has 0 English from Brazil, and that's the state requires 3 hours of direct instruction a day for that child, and it's like, we'll figure that one out. But I think that the demographics are changing a little bit here in Grafton, and some of the needs of the kids and programming is changing. But, there's a lot of building going on in Grafton that we hadn't seen before. So good luck, Jay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So I think that's impactful.
When you talk about the influx of the kids, are you saying like mid-year or just in general?
They come all the time.
Yeah.
But is there do you think there's more kids coming in mid-year than we usually see?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, because
absolutely.
I used to, getting a new child was a rarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like celebrity status.
wondering about that.
But
Celebrity.
over the summer, there's a lot of transitioning, and kids are leaving too. People are choosing maybe to live in a different part of the country or relocating for, work. But I see more kids registering to come in during the summer months, like 45 maybe, and then, but I see a consistency, more kids coming in during the year than are leaving. It's just, Grafton is becoming a very popular place to live. It's definitely becoming a sleepy suburb of Boston.
Yeah, we see definitely that as well. We get new students all the time, at least once a month, I would say, if not multiple students. And certainly over the summer, we see, the bulk of those students coming that are new. But I had a little more time to think about a question, but she touched on it. But it's to me one of the big challenges we're having, and we're going to continue to have, is that ELL population. We're up to 28 students at North Street right now, and just a few years ago, I think we had 9, maybe 12. And of those 9 or 12, most of them weren't really non-English speakers. But this year we've seen an influx, and it's amazing. Our staff talks about it, but a lot of the students we're seeing are impacted by world events. We have a family from Ukraine. We have a family from Moscow that came, in direct relation to different things happening around the world. So our students are showing up with limited English, but also a lot of trauma and other things that we're working with them on as well and helping them unpack. So I think we're going to continue to see that, and then that's just anywhere as well.
I don't think that's a Grafton
It's just not a
thing.
Grafton thing. But how we build supports in place and kind of support that shift as we continue to see those numbers rise will be challenging.
That ties back into our adjustment counselors as well. I just want to make note of that because our adjustment counselors and we are going into classrooms more to do group lessons, to create a more inclusive environment. If we, because there is a lot of misunderstanding and not understanding exactly what's happening with another culture. A child comes in and cannot speak English, so we're working on that.
And then we also just continue to work on attendance too, Amy. I think that we've seen some good growth in the last couple of years with attendance, and we continue to push that message out to families that being at school is important. And that's also a societal problem right now as well across the whole country. I think last year 1 in 4 high school students were chronically absent, which is just astounding. But our data, I've looked at our data, it's much improved from the years right after COVID. I think we're sitting around like 8 or 9% of students that are chronically absent, which that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have 600 students, 9 times 6 is 54 kids that are missing 18 or more days of school. So, and that's on the low end. Our schools are on the lower end of schools in Massachusetts. Most are around 16 to 20.
I just think about the amount of time and effort that adds on the staff to keep those kids engaged and caught up, and I know it's a snowballing effect.
And there's a percentage of that. Kids are sick, of course, or kids are traveling overseas to visit family. There's a variety of different reasons that kids miss school, but when they do, obviously that is impacting their progress and their growth. But I think the reason why our numbers are so much lower than other districts across the state is because I think the kids generally like coming to school. I think that community, that culture we try to instill, they want to be there.
Well, that's great. Anybody else? Yeah.
Real quick question, and I'd be hurt at home if I didn't ask on behalf of my stylist/manager, and this is not to be biased, but Mrs. Stockland, what is it like to be the best principal ever?
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was dubbed that by her youngest.
Oh, wow.
So been carrying that around for a while.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. Did I see a hand from one of you ladies? I thought you wanted to, okay. Anything else from the committee? All right. Thank you again so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Truly, I love hearing the positive, and I definitely do not want you guys to walk out on a negative, but I know I personally want to hear what the challenges are and what's next so that we can plan.
Absolutely.
And so it's great to hear that you're thinking ahead and you're dealing with some of it now. But I agree with you. I think that the kids do want to go to school, by and large. And that's a credit to all of you and to all of the staff. So please give them our thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you next time.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. That was great.
Okay. So we're going to skip, are we going to skip the next one, Jay, the budget, or did you want to say something real
The
quick?
budget, just to update the committee, I met with Evan Broussard, the town administrator, yesterday, and this morning we are really focusing on, obviously, on FY26 and that joint town school approach. Evan, we're just ahead a little bit, and that's a good thing. We've been talking about this for 6 months. They're having their first one of the first conversations about the upcoming budget tonight. So we're basically letting them catch up a little bit, and I think we'll be back on track the next meeting. I did speak to him about the timeline. Now that we've got a hearing coming up, and we've scheduled it for February, I just wanted to obviously know where he's at in terms of when we have to have that done. We have to have our information to him, and he will have a schedule out tomorrow for that. So that was it.
Okay. The school calendar, which for some reason I cannot get
Yep.
anything to
So
load on.
with the school calendar, I took the feedback from the last meeting, moved the early release day for professional development in October, a week before Halloween. That was the only change on the first page. On that second page, which has more like detail, I believe we're all set in terms of the open houses. I've checked for religious holiday, issues, haven't found any. Conference day was all set. What isn't set in stone yet is the marking period dates on the second page. They'll be close, they're approximate, but we'll wait until, if the committee does approve basically that front page tonight, and we know the number of days, we'll finalize that piece tomorrow and send it out. Once it's finalized, send it out to the community and share it on the website.
The only other comment that I had was the, under important dates on the right side, it still says that December recess ends January 2nd. That's the only thing that needs to be updated.
Write that down.
Yep.
Okay.
Other than that. Anything else from the committee on this? I did post it online. I talked to some parents about it. Nobody seemed particularly surprised or even enthusiastic, frankly.
The only,
I was a little surprised. I'm like, now look at the break. Make sure you understand it's a little different. And people were fine. I didn't get any feedback.
the only feedback I got was people were shocked how close December break starts in comparison to Christmas, where this year, because of how the weekend worked, but
A nice swath after.
yeah, but
New
you get a nice
Year's,
swap
which was-
after. That's what I kept saying too.
Yep. And adding a day there doesn't, I mean, it
Right.
makes it more difficult.
No, it's worse.
So I think it looks great. Any other comments, students? What do you think?
Looks amazing.
I know.
Like, I don't care.
Like, you will.
You guys have fun with that.
You guys have fun with that. Yeah.
The day before Christmas.
We won't have an election day to worry about in the next calendar, so that's relief. Won't be till the following fall, 26. So, any other comments, questions?
Looks good.
Looks good.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I move the committee approve the Grafton Public Schools 2025 to 2026 calendar.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook.
Yes, you have had various versions of this handbook shared with you for a few months now, I feel like. But in the drive for you this evening is the most updated version. I said in email, I'll say it again. Thank you very much to Christy and to Amy for sending the reviews that you had gone through. This is the most updated version. There is a significant change, I believe, on page 26, which was the addition of the food policies and procedures with school meals and things like that. But other than that, not much of it has changed, just some formatting and things like that. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the handbook.
I think the overall structure is great. I've said that in the past, and I'm going to turn it over to the committee for comments. Did you have something?
No, other than thank you for the incredible amount of work and detail, attention to detail. It's great. Welcome. Very much appreciated.
Any other comments, questions?
I still disagree with Dr. Cummings on EEAJ, but we will leave that off the table.
Which one's that?
Oh, you know the one, idling.
Is this idling again?
you
So
and
the
I.
idling, I am going to be thrilled to put it when we have the school-based guidebooks, given that only high schoolers drive.
Right.
We'll put it in the guidebook, like probably first page.
Can't wait.
It's going to be good.
It's on the cover.
You and I.
Put it on the cover.
A photo.
It will be in there.
Says
I
in the,
promise.
okay.
It will. Yes, that is our.
In bold.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this replacing the current student handbook and program of studies and everything, or is this additional one on top of that?
Yeah, yes and no. That's a great question. So, in addition to what we have here, we're going to, Dr. Cummings was just mentioning, we're going to come up with school-specific guidebooks. So this is a generic handbook for basically like pre-K to 12 and beyond for everyone in the district. And then each building will get another document that's specific to things that pertain very much to high school students that our kindergartners don't need to know about, and vice versa. So certainly not replacing the program of studies, because that information is not covered in this document, and that was done intentionally. So it does. It's kind of a hard question to answer because it's not really replacing one thing and just not coming up with a solution for those things that it would replace. It's being done kind of in tandem with those other things.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Today I discovered that I have a touch screen.
Really excited.
Wow.
Just today.
Just now.
Just now. You're witnessing it.
I've never used it.
Thank you, Grafton Public Schools. This wonderful, can I have this? Like,
Yeah, we've lost our chair.
amazing.
She's like mesmerized.
I accidentally touched it because it was
Take over.
there was like a piece of dirt on the
looks like
screen,
over
and I thought it was a comma, and I wanted to make sure.
Oh,
And
goody.
in fact,
And in fact, then the whole thing scrolled. That's amazing.
do I need to take over? Are
No.
you gonna be like mesmerized?
I'm good. I'll take a motion. If we're done with discussion, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I move that the committee approve the Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Scoreboard advertising.
Yes, at the last meeting, you may recall that I brought to the committee an advertiser for what will be a new scoreboard down at the second turf field. It was Bankers Capital. That was approved the day after the meeting. Another local company, Earthworks, came forward with the offer to advertise. They're going to split that cost with the approval of the committee, and I provided a rendering of what that would look like for you.
Oh. Very nice. Thoughts?
Beautiful.
As long as
Love it.
neither of
Let's
these
go.
organizations are selling drugs or trafficking people.
Burning lobster shells.
We're aware of.
Or
Best of my
burning lobster
knowledge, they
shells.
are
Not to our knowledge.
both above
What does
board.
Earthworks do again? I feel like I looked this up before the break.
Not human trafficking.
I wondered if it was burning lobster shells,
No,
though.
I
We just went through
believe
that.
they're very local, maybe even Grafton-based. You'll see that they're trucks. They're in the construction, moving
Yep.
earth, if you will.
Hence the name.
Yeah. But both
Site
companies are
development
great,
and utilities.
super generous. The
Thank
scoreboard will make a big difference in a
I
positive
think
way.
it's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again to the athletic director for bringing that to our attention. All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I move that the committee approve the scoreboard advertising as presented.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Awesome. 4-0, thank you. MASC contract. I believe this was the policy contract, and I read it over the break, and it's not a contract with a limit on it, so we don't have to revote every year on it, but we could discuss it if people want to. It basically, the contract was for the setup year and the first year, and then we just keep renewing. We don't sign a new contract. It's not that kind of contract. But if we were to stop and pull it off their servers, this is the contract, we would have to pay that setup fee again if we ever wanted to go back. Next time, right? So that's what's in the contract. I read it.
Okay. So this doesn't really require a vote.
It does not. That's why it doesn't say vote required. It doesn't require a vote, but the agreement will be, I mean, I assume that the invoice is probably on its way. When the invoice arrives, the school department would pay it and the service would continue. Everybody good?
I feel like we're continuing with it, so.
Okay.
After all that.
All right, superintendent report.
Just had one thing. Since we last met, I think I talked about it at the last meeting, we held a MEMA tabletop exercise. It was good, really good. It took about 3 hours. It was up at the fire station. Myself and Chris Starcheski represented the schools. It included the police department, TA, DPW, local ambulance company, police, and town emergency management. So, gosh, there were probably 30 people there. And MEMA comes in, they do this professionally, and they just run you through an emergency scenario in town. They say, this is the time, this is the date, here's the situation, and you just run by like almost 10 to 30-minute increments. Like, what would you do? What's the communication? Where are you going? Then this happens. What do you do? So it was really good. I think we did very well, certainly not perfect, and if you're not going to do perfectly, that's the time to do it. So we've got some things townwide just to improve upon, but it was really impactful. I wanted to thank MEMA, certainly, and our SRO, Mark Alves, for making it possible and putting it on.
Great.
That's all I had.
Awesome. Student representative reports.
All right, a little bit of a shorter one tonight as we're coming back from break, but we have on Friday actually starting the Student Ambassador Program is something new we started this year, or continue on from last year, and we're having some tours for the 8th graders on the 10th and 17th. We're going to have student tour guides and then also a presentation held by the guidance department, as well as tables in the common area with information about sports, each of the departments, what else do we have, clubs and activities, you name it, everything on there. So that'll be this Friday, and then I don't know what day the 17th is, but next Friday, yeah. And then we had a ugly sweater contest before break for student council, very exciting. As well as our candygrams we conducted, talked a little about that before, or not candygrams, fidgetgrams this year with the little fidget toys. And then the class of 2027 is continuing their hot chocolate fundraiser, and that's going to be on Tuesdays after school in the Commons.
There's a mandatory meeting for senior internships on January 13th. DECA Districts is hosted this Thursday by Nichols College, where Grafton's DECA team will be competing. Ski and Snowboard Club began last week and will continue on Thursdays. Grades close the 21st as a new semester begins. And Morgan's Message held their 3rd dedication game yesterday at girls basketball.
And we won, I heard.
We did.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. You're free to go if you have homework, or if you want to stick around, you're free to stay.
Homework, unfortunately.
Good night.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Future agenda items. So the next meeting is budget again, hopefully. CPAC, have we checked with them?
I have, and they're confirmed.
Excellent. GMS school update?
Not that I need an answer right now, but they asked if there was anything that the committee members wanted them to speak to in particular, to let me know, and I'll let them know.
Okay. All right, that'd be great. So preferably this week, I assume, to give them time? Okay. And I feel like we just did the quarterly report of the fiscal year
The second
25 budget.
quarter. This is going to be the second quarterly report. We had a first quarterly
We had a
report.
first? Okay.
This should be the second.
All right. Okay. So now we have town budget forecast on the 4th. Is that's on hold, I assume?
Yeah, I think I'll know better. I know I'll know.
You'll know better, okay.
tomorrow.
That's we would have Evan come in?
Correct.
For that?
That was the thought.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything?
It's not on the schedule, it's not something we need to put on the schedule, but on last year's schedule, we always had our student meetings, and I know we're trying to switch those up. I was wondering if we have
Yeah, I have a
progress
little thing to
status
talk to you
report.
about when
Okay,
we're done.
great. Thank you.
I didn't forget, but thank you, yes.
No problem.
We have some progress on that front. Okay. That looks good. All right. Moving on, we have 2 sets of minutes for approval tonight. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 19th, 2024.
Okay. Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. We'll move to a vote. Oh, do you have discussion?
No.
Oh, you're
I'm
voting.
ready for your vote. I'm ready.
All
I'm
those in
ready.
favor?
She's
Awesome.
ready.
4-0, great.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the December 10th, 2024 minutes.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Why are you looking at me?
I'm abstaining, I wasn't there.
I wasn't there either. I would also like to abstain.
It won't pass, right?
Oh, right.
It does
I
pass.
know.
It passes.
Yeah, okay.
It's
fine.
two,
I
it's
approve
2 out of 2. So,
Okay,
yeah, it
that's
passes.
fine.
I know, it's weird. Yeah, great. We have 4 warrants.
Madam Chair,
Are we going to do them one at a time, or are we going to do them as one?
would you like me to do them as one?
What is the committee's pleasure? Does anybody have anything to discuss on these warrants?
I don't. I think it's fine to do them as a group.
I would agree.
All
You don't
right.
need to read all of that. You can just read the numbers.
The numbers? Great.
That would be fine.
Love this idea. Thank you. Madam Chair, I
Yes.
move that the committee accept warrants 24, 25, 26R6, and 26.
I second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we move to vote. All those in favor? Awesome.
That was the best.
We have, I'm going to double check. We have no policy.
No.
We have no correspondence to speak of, or at all. We do not need executive session. And seeing as how there is no, oh wait, we didn't do committee reports. Do we have committee
Oh.
reports?
Yeah, I have a report.
I
All right,
don't-
go. Oh, it's not, yeah, I crossed it off. Go ahead.
I went to the band concert for the holiday, the chorus concert for the holiday up at the high school. I've attended the VEX robotics competition down in Plymouth, where our freshman team did amazing. First time ever freshmen got pushed, moved on to the second round. They actually, that wasn't in the student report, they have a competition coming up this Saturday as well in Framingham. We'll see how that goes. Apparently, a lot of computers don't have brains in them right now, but
They're still on break.
we'll see.
You're rough.
We'll see how that pans out. I got to volunteer in Mrs. Mahoney's classroom. I know she's watching because she takes these minutes.
Oh, nice.
Burned my finger multiple times, Mrs. Mahoney, on glue guns with that class project, and that's about it. That's all I have.
I also went to the high school middle school band concert, and I continue to be impressed when they get the high school and the middle school band together to play one piece, and they have like 1, maybe 2 rehearsals together before they do this, and you would expect it to be a train wreck. It's amazing to me how they are able to do that. I know our our middle school bands and choruses, they rehearse separately and then they come together, but they have a little more time. It was a great concert, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So, got a long time to go, unfortunately. And if you want to hear the pep band, they're playing at select basketball games, including Monday nights. So they're 1 for 1. We won on Monday. So I think it's good luck. I think it boosts the spirit. Anybody else have something? Did you go to something? Or?
I can't remember the date of the Grafton Railers. I just wanted to say it out loud for people that were watching, and I can't remember, so I'm going to pull it up because it's soon. It's the 18th, January 18th is Grafton Night at the Worcester Railers.
Always a good time.
Always a good time.
And people can buy tickets to that online. They don't need to go
Yes.
through the schools. If you want to show up and support Grafton,
Yep.
When you call or buy online, that would be awesome. I'm unfortunately going for Westboro night. I am.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm in a chorus that we're singing "America's Beautiful" before the game, so I'm kind of embarrassed about it actually.
We support you anyway.
Before we close out the meeting, I did want to ask policy. Can we put Jeb on the next policy on the next meeting? The kindergarten entrance. A lot of parents are starting to ask about kindergarten. I feel like this should be figured out what we're doing with that.
Okay. Yep,
It's that time of year again.
it sure is.
Already.
Okay, no problem.
Did you have anything?
I do not.
That's okay. You went far away. That's great. All right, so backing up, no correspondence, no executive session, nothing from you guys. Seeing as how there's no other business that can come before the committee at this time, I declare the meeting adjourned. Good night, Grafton.